Good day, I am Ian Christian F. Domingo from BSE 3G, and now I will be discussing a topic about or problem about the subject um, dynamics of rigid body. So here is our problem. A wheel is rotating freely at 1800 rpm clockwise. It is subjected to a variable counterclockwise torque which is first applied at time t is equal to 0. The torque produces a counterclockwise angular acceleration alpha is equal to 40 rad per second square, where t is the time in seconds during which the torque is applied. Calculate first the time required for the wheel to reduce its clockwise angular speed to 900 rpm. Second, the time required for the wheel to reverse its direction of rotation. And last, the total number of revolutions, clockwise plus counterclockwise, turned by the wheel during the first 14 seconds of torque application. So, from this problem, we are required to determine the time that our 1800 rpm will become 900 rpm. First, we solve this one. So we have our working equation for alpha, which is 40 rad per second square. Now, in order for us to know the time, we differentiate or we use this one to and substitute it in the equation for alpha. Alpha is equal to the first time derivative of our omega with respect to time. So we substitute the value of our alpha in this one. But first, we cross multiply this to this equations. So we will get alpha dt is equal to d d omega. So from this one, from this equation, we substitute this one, the value of our alpha. So we will now get 40 dt is equal to d w. So you will ask how we will get the t from this one. We integrate it. Integrate both sides. Integrate both sides. So first, we integrate it with limits from 0 to required time and from 65 or our 1800 rpm, because 1800 rpm is also equal to 65 radian per second. Why I use 65? Because our 40 is in radian per second square. So back to this, we will have our 65 to a velocity with when our time is used, or pag naabot na natin yung time na yun. Kasi ang mangyayari dyan, kung nung time is equal to 0 natin, meron tayong 65. And from a certain time, magkakaroon naman tayo ng angular velocity. Kaya yun yung naging limits ko. So, after the topic, we integrate both sides. Now, we will get from 40 dt, we integrate it, we will get 2t squared with limits from 0 to t. But this one is negative. Why? because kung mapapansin natin, from 1,800 naging 900 RPM siya. So, it is actually a deceleration, not acceleration. So, our acceleration here is negative to indicate deceleration. So, now we integrate this one. So, integration of the omega is simply omega. Then our limit is from 65 to angular velocity. And substituting the limits, upper limit minus lower limit, we will get omega is equal to 65 minus 2t square. Then, this is our equation to get our angular velocity at a certain time. Now, the question here is, what time did our 900 RPM will come? So, we substitute 900 RPM to this one, but not the exactly 900 RPM because it is RPM. As I said earlier, from yung 1,800 natin is kinonvert ko ng radian per second. Kasi yung unit ng alpha natin, yung 40, is rad per second square. So, ganun din yung gagawin natin sa 900 RPM. So, our 900 RPM revolution per minute is equal to 35 rad per second. So, RPM. So, we substitute 35 to omega. So, 35 is equal to 65 minus 2t square. And from this equation, we manipulate it to get our t. So, t here is 6.86 seconds. So, 6.86 seconds is the time required for our 1,800 RPM to become 900 RPM with the torque application. So, the second one, the time required when our angular velocity is 0. Why angular velocity? Because here the question here is the required time for the wheel to reverse its direction of rotation. I assume that when our angular velocity is 0, that is also the time when our rotation becomes or reverses. So, I use omega is equal to 0 or angular velocity is equal to 0. So, same process because the time is the required time is our question, and we have angular velocity. So, for us to determine the time, we use again this equation, this one. Why? Because as I said earlier, it is the equation where our angular velocity is or as a time passed, there will be a angular velocity, and this is the equation for us to determine it. So, substituting this one 0, our angular velocity, So 0 is equal to 65 minus 2t squared. And by simple algebra, we will get our value of t, which is 9.708 seconds. So 9.708 seconds is the time required for our wheel to reverse its uh, rotation. So last, our total um, revolution. So our total revolution at time is equal to 14 seconds. So we have here our intervals. So it is like this. It is like at this one, when time is equal to 0, our uh, our angular velocity is 65, or our 1800 rpm. Then from this one, or our 9.721 seconds, this is the time, our angular velocity is 0, or I can say when our angular velocity is 0, 9.721 or 9.708 seconds have passed. Then at time 14, when the 14 seconds pass, there will be a certain angular velocity. So the question for us is to determine how many revolutions are there from 0 to 14 seconds. And from this one, we will see a interval, because in this part it is counterclockwise or clockwise rotation. So I name it theta 1. Then from this one, it is theta 2, or our counterclockwise revolutions. Why I will solve it differently or magkaiwalay. Why? Kasi as we see, yung ating velocity ay nag-zero. Kung matatandaan natin sa mga past topics for physics, pag meron tayong certain time na nag-zero yung velocity natin, kailangan natin siyang isolve na magkaiwalay. So first, we solve from 0 to 9.721. So we have a formula for angular velocity, which is the first time derivative of theta with respect to time. So I cross multiply this for us to get alpha dt or omega dt equal to d theta. Then I substitute the value of our w, which we acquired in our past solutions, or this one, the 65 minus 2t squared. So I substitute it, 65 minus 2t squared dt is equal to d theta. Then I integrate both sides with our limits from our time is from 0 to a required time, then, or I can say from from 0 to 9.71. Then, when our time is equal to 0, our velocity or our rotation is 0. Why? Kasi hindi pa naman siya nagka-count ng revolution. So, at time is 9.71, makukuha natin yung ating theta 1. So, integrating both sides, we will get 65p minus 2/3 t cube with limits 0 to 9.71. And integration of d theta is simply theta with limits from 0 to theta 1. And substituting the limits, upper limits minus lower limits, our theta 1 is equal to, I need calculator. So, just get my calculator. Then, our revolutions when the 9.71 seconds have passed is 1219.95, or simply 1220. This is rad. So, the required for us is revolution. So, I convert this in revolution by simply dividing it or by multiplying it by 1 revolution equal to 2.5 rad. So our rad here is cancelled. Then I get 1220 divided by 2 divided by 5, and now get 1904.17 revolutions. Then the next one is from 9.71 to 14 seconds. Same process, same equations, but different in limits. So I rewrite this one, 65t minus 2 over 3 t cube. Because I rewrite it because dito lang din tayo mapupunta. Kasi same equations lang din naman talaga ang gagamitin natin, pero different lang siya ng limits. So our limit here is 9.71 to 14 seconds. Then here, theta lang ulit with our limits from 0 to theta 2. Why 0 here? Because at 9.71, at exactly 9.71, we stop it. We didn't count a revolution. Then, as time passed until we reach 14 seconds, we will get our theta 2 or our second revolution. So substituting the limits, we will get our theta 2 now equal to equal to 410, negative 410.40 region, and I convert it again to revolution by this one, by simply dividing it to 2pi, and I will get 110 divided by 40 divided by 2pi. I will get 65.32 revolution, negative I will disregard the negative sign. Why? Because it just simply uh, indicates the rotation, and this problem uh, we are required to uh, determine the total revolution. Uh, Mapa counterclockwise man siya or clockwise. So, I will uh, disregard the negative sign. So, our total revolution is in 14 seconds is theta 1 plus theta 2, which is 194.17 plus 65.32. So 194.17 plus 65.32 is total revolution is 259.49 revolutions. So approximately 259 revolution will ay mangyayari sa loob ng 14 seconds.